Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Chicago Architecture Biennials in Dialogue, a conversation series that takes an in-depth look into the interdisciplinary voices contributing to the world of architecture and beyond. Today's In Dialogue explores the newly reimagined Douglas 18 miniature golf course that has been transformed into a thriving community hub for local residents to come gather and play. The Douglas 18 miniature golf course was developed in partnership with the Chicago Park District, Haman Cross, Eric Hotchkiss, Sheila McNary, Open Architecture Chicago, David Brown, Firehouse Community Art Center, the School of the Art Institute of Chicago at Homan Square, the Trust for Public Land, Site Design Group, and the Lincoln Park Zoo. And today's program is presented in partnership with the Lincoln Park Zoo and the Douglas 18 miniature golf course. Our conversation today will be moderated by Jada Branch, the community learning facilitator at the Lincoln Park Zoo, along with Tiffany Tam, Douglas 18 social media marketing team member and designer for the Douglas 18. So with that, I will hand it over to Jada and Tiffany and let them start their conversation today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much for joining us today here at our Douglas 18 chat. And just to begin, just so we're all on the same page of like what Douglas 18 is, how the program kind of got its beginnings. So Douglas 18 is an effort to redesign a pretty much underutilized golf course at the back of Douglas Park. So I don't know if you all ever been to Douglas Park. So there's a field house, a wonderful, it's the cultural center. And so directly behind it, there's this mini golf course that not many people were using. And so what we decided to do, so this was about 3 years ago, back in 2018, the partners at Douglas 18, so the zoo, Chicago Park District, Haman Cross, Eric Hotchkiss, and Phil Williams, we all got together. And also I'm leaving out a lot of partners. We just went through the partners, so apologies if I missed anyone. But we got together and we hired a bunch of teens and young adults from Chicago's West Side, a lot of them living in North Lawndale and Little Village or the West Side area in general. And we helped them to redesign this mini golf course. So for example, my job as the community learning facilitator at the time was to teach them about the birds, and Eric Hotchkiss and Phil Williams and a bunch of other David Brown, they helped teach them about architecture and art. And Haman Cross helped them, just a bunch of different teaching art, especially for the arts, because I'm not an art person. They helped teach them about like different arts, making murals and making different obstacles and how they should look. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, and so we just helped them redesign that golf course back there with the theme of bird conservation, because in case you were not aware, Douglas Park has over 200 species of birds that migrate through there and call Douglas Park their home. And so here are some more of the people that I might have missed, so like Alderman Michael Scott, L.L. Bean, Trust for Public Lands, the Art Institute at Homan Square, the North Lawndale youth. Of course, the youth are the most important. And so like I said, this all started 3 years ago, back in 2018. So since 2018, these students have worked hard building from these like posters of the designs they wanted to these mini models that they all made to now the golf course being open. Next slide, please. And so I'll just take you on a brief tour of like all of the phases. So starting with phase one. So there are about 4 phases in total. So like I said, the first phase is all about just a big introduction of what birds are, because I think most students, if not all of them, I think they all did. They all, like, most people know what birds are, but knowing more like details about the birds, most people don't know that, such as adaptations, which is just how species survive in their environment. So for example, here we have a picture of us like birding 101 on June 26th. So this was back in 2018. So we took them birding, and this was actually at the back of Douglas Park of the field house. This is on the mini golf course. And so just doing some general birding in the area. Next slide, please. And then also this was, so the summer of 2018 was a very field trip heavy phase, because, you know, it was just really getting to know each other, getting to know more about the project and getting to know more about conservation work. And so we took them to the back of the birdhouse, or like they took a tour of the birdhouse. I just see some cool eggs back there, which is really fun for me as well, and seeing just the behind the workings of the zoo. Next slide, please. And then also taking them on a tour of the Nature Boardwalk. I'm not sure if you all have ever been to Nature Boardwalk at Lincoln Park Zoo, but it's just a beautiful space that has a lot of native plants that are indigenous here in Illinois. And so all of those plants are useful. For example, native plants are great for draining water. Chicago rains a lot, so it has deep root systems. So we took a tour of Nature Boardwalk. Next slide, please. And then also to Labatt Woods. So like I said, the first phase is very much just so doing a general overview of like what birds are, what nature is. Then also in this same phase, they made mini murals of like kind of what nature meant to them, how they would incorporate nature. And then they also even made mobile prototypes, and those will be on the upcoming slides. Next slide, please. Like I said, I include a lot of pictures because who doesn't love pictures? But just going, and also I think the important part of this phase was showing them that there's a lot of nature in Chicago that a lot of people know about, because you just think about it as like a concrete city. There's not a lot of green spaces here, but there are a lot of green spaces. So we just wanted to take them to places that incorporated both art and also nature. So the Burnham Wildlife Corridor has a lot of different art sculptures that incorporate nature. Next slide, please. And these are some of the prototypes they made. So for example, on the screen, we have a mobile prototype that's in the shape of a backward of an L. And so what the students for this group did was they learned about how difficult it is for birds to migrate throughout the city of Chicago, because we have so many tall buildings, a lot of windows, that I feel like we've all probably heard or seen, maybe noticed a bird flying to, unfortunately, birds flying to the windows. And so they just use that information to make it more difficult for the ball to migrate to the hole for this one. So that was one of the inspirations for that one. And then this prototype, for example, just uses the the habitat for the birds, so that there's a little planter in the middle of this obstacle. And so that's supposed to represent a tree where a lot of birds make their nest. Next slide, please. And then this was another one of the prototypes. So you might notice that there's a lot of different prototypes here. So they did a prototype in cardboard, that they made one out of wood. So this summer phase, they did a lot of working with wood and tools as well. This is another one just talking about nature and golfing. And then also, as I've mentioned previously, this phase was also, they did murals, so that they really honed their art making skills. So just how they see themselves in nature. So they made murals of either themselves or birds or however they felt about nature. Next slide, please. And then another bench, a cute picture. I really love this picture. I love this bench. Like, this is one of my favorite benches. Just talking about how you shouldn't release your cats outdoors, because cats can make us mess up the ecosystem of a neighborhood and of Chicago in general, because cats do not terrorize birds, but cats will kill birds. And then for phase 2, next slide, please. This is when we started to get a little more narrow with our focus. So whereas for phase 1, we talked more about, oh, hey, here's like these birds, here's a big general overview of birds. Phase 2, we introduced 24 specific species of birds. So you might recall earlier that I mentioned that Douglas Park has over 200 species of birds. For this phase, we just chose 24 birds to highlight. So birds that you would most likely see in Douglas Park. And then each student chose their own bird. So for example, here is the American tree sparrow that actually Jerica Dunn, she made this poster. And so just learning more about the American tree sparrow. Next slide, please. This is actually Tiffany's poster. She designed the indigo bunting hole. I don't know, Tiffany, if you wanted to talk a little bit about this hole and your designs for the indigo bunting.
Yeah, so what kind of inspired this bird was how they're sexually dimorphic. So the male and female birds are different colors. So the female bird is a little darker than the male bird to kind of keep safe and keep the eggs and babies safe. So I decided to incorporate a windmill. And in the windmill, there's like a nest with a female bird. And attached to the windmill are the male birds trying to distract the predators from getting the female bird as well as the eggs.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for explaining, Tiffany. So, like I said, they all chose a bird, and then each of the holes have different attributes or physical like adaptations of the bird. So, for example, Tiffany just described how the birds usually they're sexually most birds are sexually dimorphic, not all of them, but the males are usually brighter so they can distract predators away from the females. And so that was her inspiration for this hole, which is one of my favorite holes, which you all, just so we're all clear, all of them are my favorite. So you'll probably hear me say this is one of my favorites a lot during this. Next slide, please. And so also during this phase, so once each student designed their own golf hole, so there are 18 holes in general in total. So they also made these mini models made out of clay and like a really thick cardboard. So that way we can see like the proportion sizes, how it would look, how it plays. So these cutouts are actually how they look. On like these cutouts are the shapes of the holes on the golf course already. This is the hole for the American Robin. Next slide, please. And so here's another picture showing all of the mini prototypes that the students did. Each student made a mini maybe not a prototype, like a mini design mock-up of their poster. So you might notice on here, for example, there's the American Robin, the Baltimore Oriole. Each hole, like each bird has its own specific hole. Next slide, please. And then also for this phase, so this is like phase, we have like phase 2A and 2B. So for this phase, we also had another, Eric Hotchkiss was the lead for this phase. He really helped a lot with getting them to design the specific obstacles. Then also another one of his students, Ale, helped design like this 3D printout of the golf course, which we thought was really cool. So that is what's on the screen now, is just a 3D printout of the golf obstacle with all of the students' designs. Next slide, please. And then we also phase 2 was probably our longest phase. So it started like that fall of 2018 all the way into 2019. So we also did a few work days. So what was really important for this project was also including community input. So we didn't want to just like design this golf course and then all of a sudden it pops up and the community didn't know about it. So what you might notice on this slide is there's a few of us helping the students create their designs to like real life or like actual size obstacles. And so we had a lot of community days where we invited community members or just anyone around to come like put their inputs on like what they thought about the golf course, what they thought about different holes, how they thought it played, and what they liked or didn't like about it. So that way we just wanted to keep community input on for this project every step of the way. So that way the community members were aware of what was happening in their neighborhood. So that is what is represented. Another picture of us just working for that one of our community days. We did a few different ones and they made all of those obstacles mostly out of paper mache or wood. So all of these students are artists, they're architects, they're conservationists. They did a lot of work. Next slide, please. So this was one of the, like I said, these trees were really big. A lot of the obstacles that were real life, real size trees that the students worked so hard on. And all of the students, I think the fun part of this phase was that they all got to be like projects leaders. So they just instructed us what they wanted us to do. Next slide, please. And then here is a picture of all of the youth designers and as well as some of the partners. Next slide, please. And so now I'll go on like kind of a developmental process of the design / phase 3. So after all of the students, they all did these wonderful designs for their for each of the golf holes. So this is actually another one of Tiffany's designs, the barn swallow. And do you want to talk about a little bit, Tiffany, the barn swallow?
Yes, so in the barn swallow, I kind of saw the shape of the bird in the hole, so I really wanted to incorporate the whole bird into it, as well as some other like nesting or habitats they live in. So on the actual golf course, the turf is blue, which resembles the color in the bright blue that the barn swallow is. And then I had the obstacles as the eyes and the beak before the hole, as well as some buildings with mud nests under them, which is where they primarily built their nests.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that explanation, Tiffany. This is also another one of my favorites. Like I said, they're all my favorites, but this is one that really is one of my favorites. And as you might be able to tell, so the first thing that Tiffany did was make a poster of the barn swallow, and then she made this mini hole of the barn swallow, which is 3D. It might not look very 3D in this picture, but I promise it's 3D, made out of clay. And then Next picture, please. And then, so this was part of phase 3, is where it was a lot of professional development for the participants and the youth designers. So we handed off those designs they had. So those mini models that they did, the 3D that were made out of clay, those posters, we handed them off to Site Design. Thank you, Site Design. They did a lot of their work pro bono for us. And so they made those warranted schematics so that they could be read by contractors and for people who fabricate the designs. And so as you all might notice on here, the designs really stayed the same. We had a few changes for like accessibility reasons, which is very important, but the students were aware of like any changes that were being made, and they had input on their designs every step of the way. Next slide, please. Or next picture, I think it might be a picture. And so this is like another from Site Design, how we sent it to New Toys, which were the people who fabricated the actual designs or the obstacles. And so this is how it looks. So again, if you all might recall from the very first picture, very similar. The only thing that isn't similar is the color of the turf, which did stay mainly blue, but as Tiffany said, she made it so that at first it was originally like all of the colors of the barn swallow, but unfortunately turf is really hard to have multicolored. Hopefully eventually sometime in the near future we'll be able to paint the turf, but for now it's just a pretty blue. Next picture, please. Then this is one of the designs. So this is during not too long ago, actually. It's around, I believe, in May. So this is the barn swallow, how it looks out in Douglas Park, right? Not at this moment. At this moment, it's a little more finished. And so now we will go on a tour of the golf course. And so we'll just like go through these slides pretty quickly. I won't explain each hole, but you'll be able to see like the kind of finished products of them. But that was pretty much Douglas 18 in a nutshell, from the beginnings of the students learning what birds are in general, bird adaptations, like their feet, their beaks, their feathers, the students learning about specific birds of Douglas Park, and then taking those holes or taking what they learned in those adaptations and then making them into a bigger, like, obstacles into this golf course. And so you might notice on each design that each has something to do with the bird of the adaptations. For example, the Baltimore Oriole, the student made it out of the color. So the color of the turf grass is orange. And then he has big fruit. So the Baltimore Orioles like to eat dark colored berries. That's all reflected here. The Dick Sissel, they have the habitat of that bird here. And so for each hole, you might also find, if you ever take a look out there, if you all go to Douglas Park, which it is open. So the golf course is open. I forget the specific times, so I won't say it, but I know like it tends to be open in the evenings. It is not open on Sundays. But if you take a look, so one thing that you will notice is that each hole actually has the sign of the bird. So that way, we obviously don't expect everyone to like be able to recognize the bird right off the bat. So for example, the Northern Cardinal, it'll have the two separate pictures of the birds because it is a sexually dimorphic bird. So it has the female and the male of the species. Then it'll also have the student's name who researched and designed this hole. So you'll be able to learn a lot once you go to this golf course. Here's the barn swallow again, really pretty bird. The great thing about the barn swallow too is that you'll definitely be able to notice the bird when you go out there, because actually in this picture, there's the field house on the left side of the picture. And so right under that, I call it a veranda, but the barn swallows, as Tiffany was saying earlier, they make their mud nest right under that structure. So they are out there quite frequently in Douglas Park. And so if you all are ever just around Douglas Park, we would love, love, love for you all to just stop by and play a round of golf. It's pretty inexpensive. Well, I won't say that. It costs about $5. Like I said, so it's usually open in the evenings. I believe it's 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. I'm not quite sure. Feel free to check out our Instagram account for more like updated prices. It's at the Douglas 18, and that's Douglas with 2 S's and then 18, just the number. You all can follow there for any pictures. And then also they usually update on like the times and things like that. And yeah, we would love to see you all out there. And so now I'll just like kind of chat with Tiffany, and then also we'll just keep these pictures running because these are wonderful pictures and all of the hard work of the students went to all of these designs. But Tiffany, I would love to know like why you decided to participate in this project.
So I was first introduced to Douglas 18 during high school. So An instructor came into my art class and talked to us about the program. I was really interested in expanding my creativity and artwork outside of school. So I thought it was a really great opportunity.
Great. Yeah, we're super excited that you decided to join us. And so, like I said before, in case you all may have missed it, but Tiffany did design two of the holes on here. So this is actually one, the indigo bunting, which she referred to earlier with the windmill and the birds. It might be a little hard to see in this picture, but there are pictures of birds on there. And then also the different bushes are there as well. And so you already talked about kind of like what inspired your designs as far as like the different adaptations of the bird. So for example, for the barn swallow, you chose the nice color, like bright blue turf grass. But what made you choose your specific birds? Like what drew you to those birds? Or is it just kind of like a happy accident? We're just like, okay, these are what's left.
For the barn swallow, I was really attracted to the really bright color of it, as well as the really long tail that they have. So I remember when I was first researching the bird, they said that the barn swallow has that really long, deep forked tail because legend has it that they stole fire from the gods to give to people, and I really resonated with that and decided to choose that bird. As far as the indigo bunting, I really liked how there were two different colors for the male and female birds. I wanted to incorporate that into one of the holes.
Yeah, that's great. And it's actually funny. So, in case you all don't know, Tiffany is actually an alumni of Whitney Young. So, I always thought that she chose a barn swallow because it's kind of like orange and blue. And I was like, I know, I see what she did there. But yeah, those are great reasons to choose that bird. Now, actually, I didn't know that about the guy of like why it was named that. So, thank you. I learned something new every day, everyone. And another thing, so this project was a very long time. So if memory serves me correctly, you had joined us in that second phase and we talked more about the specific species of birds. So do you have, or like, what was your favorite moment or memory of the program? I know it's been since like a long time coming, since 2018, but do you have a favorite memory or moment?
I really enjoyed the field trips we took. For example, the miniature golf course, since that was actually my first time playing, as well as bird watching because I actually saw a lot of birds that I've never seen before. But one of my favorite parts was working with all the partners, designing the whole golf course and getting insights from them on how to change up the obstacles or change the level of difficulty to make it a better like enjoyment for the people of the community.
Yeah, great. I love those memories too. And that's actually, you brought up a great point and one that I do want to touch on really quickly is that so when we did take them to play mini golf, because as Tiffany mentioned, not a lot of people have been mini golf playing, especially in Chicago, like, and especially depending on what neighborhood you've been in. And that's because what we realized is like there's not a lot of mini golf places in the neighborhoods where we usually are. So, for example, I'm from the south side of Chicago, there's not a lot of mini golf places around here. On the west side, there's not a ton of mini golf places, slash any, I'm saying not a ton. There's not really any around. And so, and actually, I remember that memory, that moment you were just referring to with taking them to that mini golf place. And it was in a suburb. I want to say it was like more on the north side. And so it took them about an hour or like 2 hours to get there. So they actually left from Douglas Park and they all got on a bus. And which, to be fair, it takes buses a while to get through traffic. And just remembering that, like how long it took them to just go play a game of mini golf. And by the time they got there, yes, it was in Orland. Thank you, Craig. Yes, it was like it took them so long to get there. And unfortunately, they couldn't stay a very long time because like they got there pretty late. And it wasn't on them, it's just the fact that like it was so far away. And so now like it just makes me so happy to see that like there's a golf course on the west side of Chicago now. Like people don't have to go super far out of their way to go play mini golf. I know there's a mini golf place too downtown. I believe it's called Maggie Daly. I think that's the, or no, City Golf. Sorry, City Golf. It's City Golf. And I know that's an outdoor one too, but it's still pretty, pretty far out of the way. Hard to, not too hard to get to by public transportation, but now there's a mini golf place right here in the west side. And so that just makes me super ecstatic. And so another question, Tiffany, that I had is so think about your time, once again, just thinking about your time here at Douglas 18 in this program. What skills, if any, did you gain from this program, or do you think did you gain any skills from this program?
So I definitely gained some communication skills. I learned how to ask for help more, as well as learn how to talk to the partners regarding the design, prototype, and construction aspects of the project. And as for leadership skills, it was really hard for me to develop this skill because I wasn't one to speak up, but during the second phase, the prototype phase, where we had those life-size obstacles to bring out to the golf course, I had to direct the partners to help me and like place the obstacles. So that was very insightful.
Great. Yeah, I love that. And so our very last, well, this isn't the last question. This is just the last question that I had already pre-planned, and then we'll get to Q&A after this. But what do you hope people take away from visiting this golf course, from visiting Douglas 18?
I hope that a lot of people understand that it takes just a small idea to turn something into a big project, such as Douglas Park, and how much it will impact the community. Since, like Jada said, at the beginning of the project, the golf course was really run down, but now it's turned into a place where everyone wants to come. And I hope that people understand that it also takes a lot of partners and people to make a project successful.
Yes, that is great. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Actually, myself, I was like, I just hope people learn about these birds, but you provided such a great answer. I'm definitely, also everyone, in case you don't know, when I started back in 2018 for this course, for this project, that was also like this is my first job out of college. So I graduated in 2018. Then I started this job. And so I kind of hit the ground running with learning about birds. And so I'm really a big birder now. Like I usually cannot shut up about birds. So you'll definitely hear me like usually ramble on and on about birds, which I don't think is a bad thing. But I definitely love your answer, Tiffany. Of just like it just really takes one small idea. So yes, thank you so much. So now what we're going to do is we'll keep running through these pictures because I included a lot of pictures so that you all can get just a little taste of the golf course. And when I tell you all that these pictures just don't do it justice. I mean, I think I'm biased. I think the pictures look great, but I also think it looks really great in person. So if you all can make it out in person, we would love to see you all out at the golf course. But now I'm going to answer a few of the questions that I've been getting in the chat. And so let's start. Let's see. And also not just me, Tiffany as well. I know I've been talking a lot. So let me view here. So Tiffany, someone wanted to know how has your involvement in this project impacted you? Are your friends involved? And then also, well, actually, we'll just stop there. So how has your involvement in this project impacted you? Then are your friends involved?
So I definitely gained a lot of skills and kind of got a glimpse of how big projects work and how many different phases are involved and how long it takes. As for if my friends are involved, I always updated my family and friends on like the different phases that I've been through, so they also kind of got a taste. And I'm inviting them to come to the golf course really soon.
Great. Yes, love that. We love when like parents are involved. And, you know, and friends. We love when you all just tell your friends and your families and all of that great stuff. So another question I saw is, this is actually more towards me. So who do you consult with to help with the birding aspect of the designs and how has the community responded? So for the first part of that question, that part was big, like for me. So when I first started in 2018, I describe it as like a birding boot camp because in college I did study, my major was comparative human development, but I did take a lot of environmental courses, but none specifically in like the animal sciences or things of that nature. So I had to, a lot of my coworkers, they're big birders. They like studied a lot of birds. So I had to take, I call it like a birding boot camp. And so they taught me about all the birds in Douglas Park, really just those 24 different species. And so I just spent a lot of time learning about the birds. And so so it wasn't just me. So I might have mentioned, or I might not have. So Douglas Park is actually a big birding hotspot. So you'll find birders from a lot of different places go to Douglas Park to help just like look at the migratory birds. And so one of the birders was Eric Gyllenhaal. So he actually helped us a lot during that first phase. And one of the pictures, it was an earlier picture. He was actually out there for that first birding expedition for June 26th, I would believe, in 2018. He helped us do that, like that first birding round. But other than that, usually I was the one helping with a lot of the like answering the birding questions and like what type of birds are out there. And also the students really, after I introduced them to the birds, they didn't just, it's hard to just hear something once and then remember it. So also using a website called All About Birds was really helpful. It's an accredited like birding resource. And then I also think I saw a question about, does anyone track the migratory birds? So I just figured while we're on the bird topics, yes, we do. So there's actually a birding app, and I have like all the birding apps. I love birds so much. So people have like eBird and Merlin Bird ID. And so a lot of birders do like, they'll go out there and they'll like put into their phones or like on this app, like, okay, I saw this bird at this location. They'll provide notes. So that's usually how people track it. I know there are some, for example, the Canada geese, some of those are banded to just see how many Canada geese are out there. But usually you don't like put those bands on migratory birds. So mostly migratory birds are just tracked through birders and folks who are just out there experiencing Douglas Park. So you'll just have folks just putting it into their apps, like, okay, I saw this bird. You say like where, when, what was it doing? So yeah, so people do kind of keep track of the migratory birds. So that's why we always have like about 200 species, because sometimes you might miss a bird, but yeah, so we do track the migratory birds out there. And let's see, what is another on how has the community responded, which I think that's a great one. And so far, I believe from all of I went out to Douglas, to the golf course that first Saturday when it opened. I believe it was 2 weeks ago, August 7th or August 8th, that Saturday. So it seemed like the community responded really well. They were super excited that something like this was in their neighborhood. I believe there are also a few news organizations that have covered it. So if you type Douglas 18 into Google, you should be able to pull up some articles. But I believe they responded really well from the people that I've spoken to. And even when before all of this great obstacles were out here, so like the beautiful turf, even when it was just like cardboards, a lot of the community members were excited for it back then. So let's see, let me find another question. Someone asks, is the golf course surrounded by a fence to protect children? That's a great question. So you might be able to notice in this picture, actually, there is a fence around it. So yeah, so it is fenced off, but kind of halfway. So it's hard to explain. So the golf course right behind it is a like more marshy area. So it has like a pond behind it, and a lot of native plants where a lot of birds like to nest there. So like the red-winged blackbird loves nesting in those tall grasses. So it is like half fenced. But that's a great question. And I know there have been talks about maybe getting another fence or like redoing the fence a little bit, but there is like, it's kind of fenced off. But it does protect children, even though like the back of it isn't fenced off. So I would definitely, like I would keep an eye on your child, because they could easily probably run off back there into the water. So, but definitely keep an eye on on children, especially if they don't run off into the back of the golf course. And then another person asks, are you going to plan any tournaments? Oh, that's a great question. I don't think we had planned to, but Tiffany, how would you feel about having a tournament? Is that something that you would want to do? Like planning a golf tournament?
Yeah, that would be really cool.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. To me and Tiffany are in agreement having a little golf tournament. I am not very good at mini golf. Tiffany, I don't know how your mini golf skills are. Are you good at mini golf?
Not really.
Same. Yeah. But I think that would be really fun. Let's see, make sure I get all of these questions. Oh, yes, thank you. Also, just wanted to highlight this. So for those interested in birds and birding, some of the resources that you all might be able to find are eBird. So that is one of the um apps that I just talked about that helps you track migratory birds, or just not just migratory, any birds that you see. So you'll go into eBird and you'll say, oh, hey, there's usually a list of birds that they have like a list of birds that mostly you'll see in your area. And so you just be like, oh, I saw an American tree sparrow. But I would start with, and then also, so you have Merlin Bird ID, which is a great one. So Merlin Bird ID is what you'll do is you'll go into the app, and you'll kind of start describing your bird. So it has like, oh, well, what size was it? So it has like, was it sparrow sized or bigger, between like a sparrow and a robin? Was it between a robin and a crow, or crow and like a larger bird of prey? For example, a bird of prey is hawks, eagles, all of those birds with like sharper talons and then like a hooked beak. And so you'll use that. So like, okay, it was about a medium-sized bird. So pretty much like a robin size. Then it'll ask you the color. So you'll be able to click on a few colors. Then it'll ask you like what the behavior of the bird was doing. So that's one very important attribution of birds is like, oh, what are they doing? That really helps identify birds. Well, so for example, American robins, people usually notice American robins on the ground because American robins eat worms. So for example, you say like, oh, it's a medium-sized bird. It was orange and brown. It was on the ground. The app will then give you a list of birds that it thinks you might have seen, depending on like your location. And then you can go from there. So I love Merlin Bird ID because I know a few birds. Like I know in general, like the birds around Chicago, but when you're traveling, like it's hard to know all of the birds. So yes, Merlin Bird ID, eBird. And then the other one that I've mentioned, I think I mentioned it kind of like in just like a password comment, but All About Birds, which is a great website. I use it all the time. It's just allaboutbirds.com. It'll give you just the history of the bird, the map of the bird. So usually if it's a year-round bird, so for example, the northern cardinal in Illinois, it hangs around all year round, doesn't really migrate. So it'll give you a lot of information about the birds. And yes, that was a lot about birds. I'm so sorry. I feel like I talked to you all's ears off. And so let me move on to some more questions. Thank you, Stephanie. Stephanie works at the zoo. She was the one who provided those different resources for birds. And then, are there plans to keep young people engaged in projects around the course and at Douglas Park? What a fantastic question. And also, so this is like one thing that I definitely forgot to mention, and I am so sorry to Shannon. So one thing that we did do is when the pandemic hit, we had, for a while, we said the golf course was going to open in 2020, but obviously things happened and it couldn't. So another phase, so I mentioned there were 4 phases. So the 4th phase was our social media phase. And so that was a way for us to keep the community and young folks involved with the project. So if you all might have, if you all can recall, Tiffany was a member of the social media phase and also a designer. So like I said, Tiffany has been with us for a very long time. Thank you, Tiffany. And so that was one way that we were keeping young folks engaged with the projects. They are running the Instagram and the Facebook for Douglas 18. So if you follow at the Douglas 18 on like Instagram and Facebook, those are all like posts from young folks who are involved with the project. And then afterwards, and this is like a great question, the partners are currently in talk of like how we can keep the park activated because we love this project and we're going to keep it running. So some of the ideas that we've had floating around so far is like teaching people how to lead bird expeditions. So teaching them how to lead how to go birding, and so they can take other people birding. And so there are definitely plans for us to keep young folks engaged. And I love this question. Yeah, so thank you so much. So yeah, we're definitely trying to still think of ways to keep young folks engaged and like keep activating this park, Douglas Park. It's a great park. I love this park. Let's see. Is there a maintenance plan to keep the course looking beautiful? What kind of plants are around the course? I love this question. So yeah, there are a few different maintenance plans, insurance plans, because Chicago, a lot of weather things happen. So there is a maintenance plan, and honestly, I don't know the ins and outs, but I do know like for some of the things, for example, the paint chips. I know we already have like some paint, so like the paint chips a little bit, we can repaint it really quickly. I know the zoo is committed to like if there is damage to one of the obstacles, then we will pay to have it repaired. And then the types of plants you will see. So on the golf course itself, there are like trees, around like on the golf course. But then, like I mentioned, like in the back of the golf course, so kind of where that American Robin and the Baltimore Oriole holes are, so those first 2 holes, there are a lot of tall grasses and a lot of purple coneflowers. They call them black-eyed Susans, like those yellow. I call them yellow cone. They're not called yellow coneflowers, but they look like purple coneflowers, but if they were yellow. So those are a lot of the flowers and a lot of plants that you'll see back there, and all of those native plants to Illinois, which is great. So a lot of them have the deeper root systems, which will help prevent flooding. And what are some other questions? You can set up quiz questions at each hole that provide info about bird. Oh my goodness, I love that suggestion. So setting up a quiz at each hole to provide info about birds. I love that. So currently there are like signs at each hole which tells you about the bird, but I really like the quiz option. I love that. And then also, okay, so I would like to highlight that because I love these collaborations. So another one of our participants here, not participants for the golf course, but someone else who's on the webinar, there's a collaboration, took me a while to read that. Theater is bringing the light. So showcase the youth talent to Douglas Park on this week on August 19th. I think it's about 1 to 3 stops around the city. So yes, definitely. I definitely love highlighting any events happening in Douglas Park so we can keep with the activation of Douglas Park. Let me make sure I didn't miss any questions. Definitely feel free to keep the questions coming.
Jade, I was hoping to ask one more question of Tiffany, that now that the design process has kind of ended, what is your role with the golf course? Are you working more on the social media team now, or kind of how has your role evolved?
Yes, so I'm currently still working at the social media team, so I hope to continue that for the next month or so.
Yes,
great. And how long will the golf course stay open until?
Oh, that's a good question. I believe so. The hours are, it opens, I don't want to say, I believe it's May to October. So, closed during like the winter months and then opening again back in May. And I forgot the specific hours. Apologies for that.
Right. Well, I want to thank you both so much for speaking with us today. Oh, there might be another couple questions coming in. Oh, Lisa says May to October, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then Saturday 9 to 5 p.m. for the hours of the golf course. Thank you, Lisa.
Yes, thank you.
Well, I want to thank you, Jada and Tiffany, so much for being with us this evening, afternoon, and talking more about the design process and the practice of bringing this miniature golf course back to life. And thank you so much to all of our attendees for attending this program this evening. And very much thank you to the Douglas 18 Miniature Golf Course and the Lincoln Park Zoo for your partnership in presenting this program. And we really look forward to seeing more photos of everyone really enjoying the golf course.
Yes, thank you all so much. And yes, definitely great job, Tiffany.
Yes, great job.
Great.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. We look forward to seeing you soon for another Chicago Architecture Biennial in Dialogue series.